All right, we're good. All right. All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the March 3rd, 2025 Franklin Township Board of Supervisors workshop meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. In attendance, myself, Chairman David Gerstenhaber, Vice Chair Donna D., Supervisors Don Dowling, Jim Johnson, and Betsy Odgers. Also in attendance are our Operations Manager, Jeff Eastburn, Controller and Office Manager, Melissa Ortega, and Township Secretary, Stacy Hollis. We also have our Township MS4 engineer, Ron Reagan of Reagan Engineering. And there are, how many people are online there? Three people from the public. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right, thank you, everybody. I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Public comment may include any comments relating to tonight's agenda items. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a resident of the township or a non-resident taxpayer in the township. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be included in the official minutes. Do we have any public comment to start us off? Okay, not hearing any, I will move to business. We're going to start with our agricultural security area application. We had a brief discussion about this at our Board of Supervisors meeting from 2019. And this involves 1067. This involves 1067 Wickerton Road. And this resolution or this motion is to initiate our 15-day public comment period and initiate advertising. So I'd like to make a motion that the board acknowledge receipt of the application from the property owners at 1067 Wickerton Road to include a portion of their land under the ASA. With the acceptance of the receipt of this application, this begins our 15-day public comment period. The board permits staff to forward this application to the ASA Committee, the Township Planning Commission, Chester County Planning Commission, and the Chester County Agricultural Preservation Board. After the 15-day public comment period is ended, the board also permits staff to advertise the ASA Committee meeting date and time. May I have a second? Second. All right, thank you, Donna. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, motion carries 5-0.
Did you have a question? Did you have a question?
I did. If I may ask you guys a question?
Sure, absolutely. You want to and just
say who you are.
My name is Bruce Yost. I'm a supervisor at London Bryn Township. I just like to be curious, does and when you guys get an ASA like this, do you guys give any monies towards? Do they ask you for any monies towards? Did you have a fund or anything? I'm just curious as to the process.
No, this is privately funded. Yeah.
This is done through the county, and basically what it does, it protects the farmers against nuisance complaints and problems, but no money comes from the township for the ASA.
Yeah.
We don't have very many of these. Like this is the first one in how many years? 10 years.
10 years,
So,
yeah. Okay. So if you want more information about this ASA and any other discussion, we did have this topic on the February 19th, 2025 Board of Supervisors meeting. All right, so let's now move on to our municipal separate storm sewer system MS4 public education discussion and update. One of these, as part of our MS4, and we'll have Ron help us go through this. But part of our MS4 requirements is not only doing stream bed restoration. Um, it also includes educating the public as to what MS4 is. We have a couple of outlets that we use. One is these meetings. We talk quite a bit about it. We also have our newsletter where we usually have some sort of educational missive on MS4. Uh, but I think if Ron, maybe you can talk a little bit about what those requirements are and if we are currently meeting them or what we might need to do further. And then there's also another few topics on this list that we need to go over. So I'll hand it over to you, Ron.
Okay, Jeff, am I able to share screen?
You are, young man.
Okay. Hang on. Okay, can you see I think you have this in your packet, but this is I'll be kind of using this as an outline for this evening.
It's really small. I think you should make it bigger because,
You can zoom it
yeah,
out.
because Ron, I think what you're doing is really a good idea to explain that the six MCMs
was
that make
good.
up this plan. Yeah, so I think if you go through the one by one, it gives people a sense of how this plan works or this program works.
Okay, so I blew it up so it fills up my entire screen. So can you guys see it okay? And I can even blow up more once I get down into the individual
good.
MCMs. Basically, we have a permit, a new permit, an active permit as of February 1st, 2025. Up until that point, we had been operating under a permit that just kept getting extended. And it was due to expire and got extended again, was due to expire and got extended again, because it took a long time to get through that TMDL PRP planning process to come up with what kind of load reductions we needed to have in the township. As part of the requirements for the permit, we need to submit an annual MS4 status report every year. And we are tardy in the one last year. And part of that is that we had changed horses a couple of times midstream and during the course of the period of time that annual report would have covered. So we're still playing catch up. I think we're close to having it ready. I just want to have a meeting with the people that reviewed it before and make sure we've got everything that and they feel comfortable and we can submit that. DEP is not terribly aggressive in going after people for these. They were more concerned with getting these permits in place so we have an actual plan moving forward. Each year you should have been paying a fee of $2,500. So you needed to make sure that you've been paying that. And I'm pretty sure Melissa's good about taking care of all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that's been paid. One of the things that I'll be talking about a little bit tonight is a stormwater management program. That's where we tell how we're going to go through and address each one of these MCMs. This township, for the White Clay Creek side of the township, we do need to do what's called a pollution control measures, PCMs, to address pathogens. And we have to come up with a plan for that. I'll go over that a little bit more. We need to do a pollution reduction plan. That's our PRP, which we did. That was in the PRP TMDO plan. It just got approved the end of last year and led to the issuance of the permit. For the, excuse me, that was for the Big Elk Creek side of the township only. That the PRP is for the Big Elk Creek side. The total maximum daily load plan for the reduction of load in the West Branch side of the township, West Branch White Clay Creek, is also in that plan that was submitted that led to issuance of the permit. We move on into the actual stormwater management program where we get into the MCMs. As Dave mentioned, we do have to do a certain amount of public education and outreach in order to keep the public informed on what it is that we're doing with this program. Typically, that happens through the placement of articles in newsletters. Sometimes it'll be posters on prominently displayed at places where the public might gather or come in and out of the township building. There are posters that you can put up on those. Mailings you can do. I don't know if you send out in a newsletter, whether you mail a newsletter or your newsletter is online, but there are articles you can put on newsletters. There are also social medias, you can put out with, anything on Instagram, Facebook, that kind of situation. We do belong to an association, I think it's the Brandywine White Clay Creek Association, that we pay a membership fee and they provide a lot of materials for us that we can use for this type of activity. And this is something that we need to report on in the annual report. So that's one of the things that I know you go through and look at the draft annual report that we provided to the township back in September, October. There were a lot of things that referred to minutes of the meeting, publication, newsletters, articles in the paper, and some of that stuff came from that Brandywine White Clay Creek Association.
Hey, Ron, before you move on from off of the education piece, we have a lot of outlets that we can educate the public with. We have our newsletter that we send out twice a year. We have a web page. We have places in our parks. I presume once the work starts on some of these projects, we might be able to put a sign up at the park that says this is what's happening. And so there's a lot of things that I think we can do pretty easily. Is there a recommendation to say you must do, an article and a mailing and a social media post, or is it just to show? Is just part of it? You have to show that you're doing something to educate the public.
I don't think you need to do something. I don't think there is an absolute minimum. I don't think there's an absolute maximum, but I think it's more up to the township. The more aggressive, the more staff availability you have to do that kind of stuff, the better it is and the more informed you can keep the public, the better.
Sure.
Certainly having what I would suggest is a regular slot on your agenda for at least one of your meetings, your work meeting or your regular meeting, to bring that up and remind people that's a time that they can ask a question about what the status of it is.
Yeah.
I know people, if it's not something they're seeing every day, something happening in the field or hearing about it or something like that, won't ask about it in just an open public comment period.
So it may. Oh, Don, you'd like to say something?
I'd like to help with that because Shane Morgan and I have done a lot with our rain garden. And we have been talking lately about doing a program here. Shane's very up to date with what counts towards that and what counts when we put on our webpage for that. And she sends a lot of stuff to Jeff, but I can step forward and help with some of that education stuff if that
would be great.
Okay.
Just as an aside, I think Jeff and I had been talking about looking at our website in general, because we built the website and we just kind of put everything up there. We never really went back and made sure that it all was in the right place. So this might be a part of maybe build out an MS4 page that we can, update.
And Shane did say if we post stuff about what they do on our webpage, that counts.
Perfect.
So I can step forward and help with that.
Yeah, I think this is really important for all of us to realize, for MS4, we've been, at least I have been so focused on what are the projects we're doing? What are the physical projects in terms of the reduction in pollution load, like the TMDL and the PRP. So focused on that. And I think this is a good opportunity to say, no, there's another big part of this, which is now it may not be $1 million, but it's two of the 6 things is about public education and public involvement. And I like the idea, Dawn, that you could lead that, like with Ron, to figure out, hey, what is our plan? To have this, now, it doesn't have to be a lot. It's just that we're conscious about it and that we are looking for those opportunities and then we document them.
Well, and what people don't know is that through Shane's department, township residents can get a $2,500 donation to building a rain garden in their yard. They come to your house, they show you where to build it, and they can give you a $2,500. And there have been people in our township that have taken advantage of that. She was going to send me a percentage of people that have already taken advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, it's already happening, so we just need to make sure everybody's aware of it.
What I'm trying to say is that's important,
Yeah.
but I would like you to think beyond that, like to think about, like, whether it's a newsletter or whether it's have some, because Ron, I don't know how you think, but it'd be nice to have a plan. Like, okay, so these are the 4 things we want to do in 2025. And once again, I'm not looking to say spend thousands of dollars. I just want to have a
Well-
plan so that when the annual report's being put together, it's like, yeah, we did this, and it's
And
done.
we already have the mechanisms in place to do all of this without spending really
Right,
much money
right.
or zero money. It's really just making sure that we have the plan and say, all right, newsletter twice a year, web page. We'll probably have a workshop meeting just dedicated to have people come in and ask questions. And so,
So I think
all right.
documenting it, and then when the annual report comes, you're able to say, yep, these are the 4 things we did. Here it is. Ron, put it in there. All right, I'm sorry.
All right,
Back
Don,
to
you got a
Ron.
job now.
Yeah, thank you.
You got another one, I should say. You got another job.
I think the idea there on a plan is that there should be things that get done routinely every year. And it's almost like a checklist. You go through, we did that, we did that, we did that. But then there's going to be some things that are come up that are special that you don't do every year. There might be a situation where a tree fell down and clogged a stream or something somewhere that somebody needs help. You could organize a community thing to do that. Trees could go down in the park. That would go down and block the stream that's causing erosion. You could organize something to do that. So there needs to be a mechanism there to react to different situations that come up that need to have some attention as far as stormwater management. And you've got a lot of nice facilities, a lot of nice land in the township, between the preserves, the parks. You've got opportunities to do that on your own public land. So that's great.
The key is documenting it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, Ron, we do it.
Right.
But I don't think, at least I can speak for me personally, I haven't thought about it as MS4. I thought about it as what you do, right?
So there should be each year, this document, the stormwater management program needs to be updated. Just to go back and revisit, do we want to do a slight twist on anything that's a standard yearly event, activity, task? And then are there any new ones that you can predict that you can do this year that are maybe a once a year kind of a thing? But you don't want to just, prepare this document, put it on the shelf and try to remember everything that was supposed to have been done. And maybe you got all of them or maybe you didn't. So it needs to be an active document that's being used to administer this permit. We're starting to get into some now that are getting actually into getting out there and getting your hands in the water and finding out what's going on with the stormwater in the township with MCM3. Illicit discharge detection and elimination. What often happens in subdivisions, somebody will decide that their sump pumps pumping too often out into their yard and their yard's remaining soggy where the sump pump discharges. So maybe we should just pump that right into a storm sewer. Well, that's a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. So that would be an illicit discharge. Sometimes, I don't think so much in the newer subdivisions and in more rural townships, but sometimes you get into the more densely populated villages. You have problems with on-lot septic systems or cesspools or whatever don't function as great as they should. and people decide that, well, maybe I can just put my wash water right out into a storm sewer. So those are the kind of things that during this illicit discharge detection phase, every year you're supposed to go out after dry weather for at least 7 days and detect to see if there is anything like that that you can identify in any of your MS4s.
So what are you looking for? Wet areas that aren't supposed to be wet?
Well, you would be looking at basically at the actual MS4 system. So the MS4 system is either storm sewers, inlets, roadside swales and gutters, things like that, that after 7 days of no rain should not have water flowing in them.
Okay, I see.
So if somebody is discharging a sump pump in one of those, that's going to show up. Somebody's putting wash water in there every other day or something, it's going to show up. If you do detect it, you're supposed to sample it, see what it's composed of, what's in it, try to determine what the source might be. And then you should go to the owner and try to get it, let him know that, this is an illegal connection. You need to stop doing it. And then you need to determine, what was going in and should any other measures be taken beyond that to try to remediate any kind of impacts that might have happened from that illicit discharge.
So Ron, who does this? So is it, I don't know, we don't really have anybody. Do we hire somebody to go out and do this? How many of these?
You would
sewers
hire
and-
someone or train someone you don't really have staff per se, it was something that you could have somebody in the engineer's office do that. You could have your permitted building inspector, zoning officer check that when he's out doing other inspections to see if any of the discharges, any of the storm sewer systems have any presence of water in them that shouldn't have. Most townships are doing it with a more junior person with their engineering company or their appointed engineer.
How many stormwater things do we have? Like so it says you're supposed to do 20% of existing outfalls or something. Like how many are we talking? We're talking about 100? Are we talking about?
Yeah, we'd be looking at going out every year, looking at maybe 20 to 30, something like that.
So once again, do we need a plan that says we do 10? a
I
quarter?
would, yes. And it talks about updating your MS4 stormwater map. The stormwater map has outfalls identified on the map that we used for the TMDL and PRP. They have outfalls identified. And so what you need to do is to create a list of those and just take a fifth of them and go out and do them 1 year out of the permit cycle for each permit cycle.
Is it usually obvious where the illicit dumping is coming from? Or do you have to do some, if you are in a stormwater area coming out of a development and it looks like water's flowing, do you now have to go house to house to find where it's dumping, or is it fairly obvious usually?
It's usually pretty obvious. I mean, sometimes it's as obvious as you can see a pipe coming down across the yard, or it'll run out, 2/3 of the way across the yard and flow across the yard as surface flow the rest of the way. Some of them you'll actually see somebody would have punched a hole actually in the box, connected a pipe. And normally these things are far enough apart. I mean, you're talking, most of your subdivisions are an acre plus lot. So you're not talking 5 houses around one inlet box, and they're not going to run the pipe,
Right.
half a mile. So you can follow it back that way. But my experience has been that probably 8 out of 10 that you find are springs related. It's not anybody doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
It's just that, there are springs at certain times of the year that you would think everything is dried up, and inlet boxes don't stay watertight like they were when they were first put in. So if you have a inlet box that's been put in where there is a spring or seasonal high groundwater, sometimes you will get water leaking in that. And you determine that by testing them and seeing what's in that. There's nothing that would show that it's anything coming out of a washing machine or somebody's. I mean, if it's it can be clean water if it's going there naturally. You don't want somebody putting it there as a means to get rid of water from somewhere where they just don't want it. So it's identifying that there's one there, determining the source, testing it, and then if it's natural, it's fine. Keep an eye on it. If it's not natural, then you need to eliminate it.
So Ron, is it, if someone had water coming into not their basement, but their French drain in the basement and the sub pump was pumping it into there, that's natural, right?
That's natural, and it's not supposed to be connected directly to the storm sewer.
Okay,
You're supposed to pump it out on the lawn or into you could put in your own dry well, pump it into a dry well. You can
Right.
put it into, a flower bed and let it irrigate use that as a means of watering your flower bed. And then
Right.
let it overflow out of that, or put it out where it doesn't cause erosion. You don't want to pump out groundwater out of your basement, that's seeping into the basement to a point where it's creating enough of a velocity that and enough of a volume of flow that it's causing erosion. So you'd want to put it out in a stable area, but you
Got
don't,
it.
you can't discharge it all the way and pipe it right into the inlet box.
okay,
For the construction of new stormwater control facilities, this should be something that your township engineer is doing on a regular basis. That anytime you have development over a certain amount of earth disturbance and over a certain amount of impervious areas being created, they need to have a stormwater management system planned, designed, approved by the township, and then installed. So typically those would be, inspected by the township engineer. Possibly the code enforcement building inspector would do some of those. If it goes over 1 acre of earth disturbance, then it could trigger the need for the Chester County Conservation District to get involved because an NPDES permit was involved. Then they would do some of those inspections. But you need to report in your annual report every one of those that were done. And that was one of the things with that transition from through 3 engineers doing your plan in the year 23 to 24. I guess Pannoni was doing some of them. I don't know whether LTL ever did any way back then, or whether, if they did all of them, whether Arrow did any. I did not do any inspections of facilities gone in because I was just helping with the MS4. I wasn't the township engineer. So I don't know who's actually been doing those. For this past year's annual report, Pannoni did provide me with a list of projects that they either had inspected or will be inspecting, but it wasn't terribly detailed in terms of when, what, and where, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it needs to be a little more formal. I would suggest an actual inspection form that's used, and then we keep an annual record, and that annual record then could be put in to the report as far as how we're reporting it back to DEP, what we did.
Do you have an example of that form you can share with me, Ron?
I can, yes. Also, there are post-construction stormwater management plans that would definitely require it to be bumped up to the level of these are the ones that are bigger, larger, are required by your stormwater management ordinance, and typically would have certain critical stages that need to be inspected, also need to have things like operation and maintenance agreements put in place and things like that. So we need to do those as well. I think your ordinance starts at 1,000 square feet of impervious coverage and then goes up to 2,000, and then it has to be an engineered plan. And if it goes all the way up to being 1 acre of earth disturbance, regardless of how much impervious coverage, then it's an NPDES permit. But your ordinance still requires the township to do stormwater management review and O&M and inspections and all that kind of stuff. So those need to be, you need to separate between what's being done by the township and what's being done by the conservation district. And that a certain number of those, once they're finished, you should continue doing inspection. So this inspection isn't just a one-time or once or twice effort when it's being installed. There needs to be, and the permit breaks it up by 20%, so that essentially you're doing like 1/5 or 20% of those each year of the permit, because these are 5-year permits. So we need to be going out and inspecting everything during the construction and installation needs to be inspected, final sign off, and then you need to start inspecting things once every 5 years at a minimum. You can do it more than that, but that's the minimum they recommend.
So once
Again-
again, we need a plan. I mean, I just think these are things we're not doing now, are we?
I didn't see any record of it, and that's why I was struggling, Donna, with trying to put together the annual report, kind of at the tail end of the period, coming in, not knowing what was done, and we reached out to Arrow. They were not terribly helpful with volunteering information about what they did. Panoni made an effort, but it's not like it was, I had any knowledge of what was done, what didn't get done. But it needs to be a more formal process, yes.
So this is something that we talk to Panoni about and say, hey, I think these reports are September 30th is when these reports are due.
Yeah.
Is to say, all right, well, for the next year, here's the list of, engineering reports we're going to need from you, so Ron can assemble the DEP or MS4 reporting. I guess a lot of this was new to us, so we weren't looking at it. When you, Ron, submitted this year's report, was there an issue? Are we playing catch up next year where we have to do 40% of these? They all have to be done once every 5 years. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we could, if we didn't do any this year, that means we just have to do twice as many next year. Right. Is that kind of the plan? Is that
I think that's a good plan. I would say, depending on budget and timing, what seems to happen every year, every engineering firm's got several municipalities that they're working for doing these types of activities, it seems like, and then it always kind of it's not September, it's actually beginning of June in 2024 to the end of June in 2025 is the next annual report time period.
Right.
So we've got work to do in March, April, May, and June this year to get out and do these inspections and and for some of them, for the illicit discharge connections, we're going to have some dry weather to do that, which hasn't seemed to have been too much of a problem in the past as far as dry weather, because I think we're like 10 or 12 inches below our normal rainfall. But I think it's a good idea. I would say doubling up on them would be a good idea this year.
Sure. So Ron, so that's the plan. We'll catch up this year. When you talk about these post-construction inspections, are we talking about 22? How many inspections are there? If we were to do 100% of them this year, how many inspections is that?
I think we have somewhere approaching 100 existing BMPs that are in the ground. So the post-construction of those BMPs being put in the ground, we would be looking probably at doing 40 BMPs.
40 of them this year. Okay. If that's insurmountable, I mean, if that's too much, let's just looking at the rules. We have 5 years, right? We may have bounced the first year, so we have 4 years left.
Well, we're actually in, I mean, this permit cycle, the 5 years, I think we could.
Oh, so you could do 20, so we don't have to do 40, we could do 25.
Yeah, so
right?
it's weird because our permit starts February 1st. The annual report
is due
time frame goes July 1 to June 30th.
Okay, well, so I guess, yeah, I guess the thought is if 40 is too much, then we can always just do 20, right? 25. We're still at our 5-year cycle, you know. Yeah, please.
I would say trying to bump it up this first year because
Oh yeah, I mean, it's
we'll,
get as
we'll,
many as you've done. One.
we'll be
Hands down.
talking about this a little bit more later on. We talk about roads a little bit. Is that the cost associated with administering this whole MS4 thing is going to get worse before it gets better
Oh,
unless we
yeah,
get a lot of
absolutely.
grants.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we should do it as many as we can. It's
Yeah.
we're just thinking about time.
Yeah.
Bruce, you had a comment.
I just had a question. It kind of relates to what Dave asked, and that is this. Ron, if I hit all 6 of these every year, I'm going to get 5 stars from the permit. But what are the consequences if I do 2 of them well 1 year and 3 the next year? In other words, what's the consequences of falling short of each of these MCMs? What do you see, hitting them all versus putzing around?
This whole program has been sort of something that has not been well run from the federal government to the state government to the municipal government. And part of that problem is that it's an unfunded mandate. So nobody has any money to do any of this. The other thing is that we weren't told clear, concise guidance on how to do it. And to make it even worse, they changed paths on us 3 or 4 times along the way. So we started out, I wasn't working with Franklin back then, but I started out in a couple of other townships where I had about 15% to 20% of the number of what were considered MS4s and what were considered outfalls when we first started this project, or this permitting type activity. And I think part of that has evolved to keep getting bigger and more, because it seemed like they get their results and it didn't give them quite enough load reduction, or it didn't give them quite the results that they wanted. So they come back and say, okay, we're going to change the protocol. Now we want you to do this. We worked very hard 15 years ago to try to come up with a list of all of our MS4s. By definition, it's a separate storm sewer system at 4 S's, MS4, and they're owned by the municipality. Well, the original definition, that was a dug channel or a pipe with inlets. Now it's any road, automatic, whether it has any swales alongside the road or not, a road is an MS4. So now the areas have all gotten bigger. It's Bruce, I know it's like, we've keep trying to keep up with this. It keeps changing. And as a result of that, luckily, DEP has not been terribly aggressive going after people for not doing all of these 100% to the letter of what they would like. I think they're going to get a little more proactive. They're starting to do some audits. I know in this area, Penn Township was audited about 6 months ago, and I think East Marlboro, I think, was audited about a month ago. And what they do is come out and check to see how well you've implemented these control measures.
So up to now, we've been just trying to figure out what we need to do, right? And it's taken us a couple of years to figure out what it is we actually need to do. And at least from our perspective, and I'm not saying, that we're not slow walking this at all, but the DEP and the people that we've interfaced with just seem to be happy that we're paying attention to it, right? So you're doing something which is more than many townships are doing because they're so overwhelmed, or they just say we can't afford it, or they're just pushing it off. So as long as you're not at the last guy in line, you're somewhere in the middle. It's a good place to be. I'm not saying like this is a strategy we're employing because it's not. It's just simply we're doing as much as we can. You got to say that because we're being recorded. No, I'm just kidding. But there's a point where there's so much to do, and it's an unfunded mandate. We have three person office. We can only do so much, so we're doing our best.
Well, I think
So
they're still taking the approach now to how can we help you get more in line with the schedule that we're giving you? Not
Yeah.
how do we beat you up or penalize you for not
right.
doing that.
Yeah. I mean, the easy answer is give us some money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big problem. Yeah.
I think the key for me is this is all in addition to doing the actual pollution reduction. This is stuff that I had no idea we had to do. I knew we needed millions of dollars for these projects. But this is about just tracking stuff, right? And expecting it. And
Yeah, it just seems like there's a lot more details and it just seems like I don't know what the right word is, but there's, scope bloat is what we call it when you start a project and you say, hey, I want to clean up the water. Great. And then that's the scope of the project. And now we're here where we have to have a website and we have to have signs and we have to have workshops with the township and we've got to do this list of all this other stuff. And you're like, well, okay, well, how is this helping all of this, and not in any of these individual things aren't bad. We should be looking at thes things, but
the government, I mean, it's inspect, write it up, put it in a report, and it sits on somebody's shelf.
yeah.
So Jeff, is there, I don't, your head must be spinning because my head's spinning. Is there a way to get us together with Ron and together with Pannoni to put a plan together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got it written down.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And Dawn, I think we just have to meet and figure out how do we, what is the plan for to making sure we at least look, we're not going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be perfect,
Mm-mm.
but at least put an effort so that when the annual report goes in, we can say, yes, we did A, B, and C.
So Donna, to your point about planning, right? So we're in the same boat, right? You guys know that. And so if we're going to be putting a plan together, would it be helpful for us to share that with you guys? I mean, Pannoni and Ron are involved, but at the same time, it's going to be sweat equity from a supervisor to do.
Absolutely. It's always nice to try and work together. And we have a common element here, and that's been it.
Right.
So we work with Ron Wright is our main man.
Yeah.
And secondarily, it's gonna be Nate Kahn.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bruce, we've done, I'm not sure where your township's at, but we've done a lot of homework on this. We have done a lot of homework. We have, even though we're still kind of feeling it out, we have a pretty good idea of what needs to get done. So you can take our homework, and learn a lot from that and save yourselves a lot of time. Because we've made some left turns along the way. And,
That's more with the projects that
was more with the projects and that's where things can get tricky is if you get the wrong projects, then they'll get very expensive very quick. So
Let me finish, if I may, Dave, let me finish. There's one more minimum control measure.
sure.
The number 6 is the one that deals with pollution prevention, good housekeeping, whereas I'm sure that Stacy, Melissa, and Jeff don't pollute stormwater, but typically road crews, do a lot of activities that can create erosion issues, silt issues. They put salt on the roads, they put cinders on the roads. I realize you have a contractor, not a public works department, but it would be good to do some training of certain individuals and make that be a requirement of the contract award, that they keep current on some of that kind of stuff.
This is something, sorry, Ron, this is something that every township has this MCM number 6 on their list. So this might just become a requirement default for some of these road crews, right? If we're all asking for the same
if
thing.
they're doing multiple municipalities, I would say yes. Now, if they're basically doing a one township and then private sector work or something like that, they may not be getting it
Okay.
elsewhere. Certainly Bruce, in your case with your own public works group, you know, your guys are going to need to get their own training. They're not getting it in some other municipality. So and there are, you can go to this website and just ask them to go watch that video or have that, show that video on your nice audio video setup in the township meeting room there, and make maybe not all the staff, but the seniors, you know, the owner and the senior staff and yard works come in and watch the video.
Sure. You did that last year.
There's a couple of other things that need to be looked at, since we are where we are, and we talked about this briefly up in the top of this couple of page exhibit, is that you need pollution control measures for pathogens. Our White Clay Creek side of the township is designated as impaired for pathogens. So we need to come up with a list of all outfalls and the drainage areas to those outfalls that might be impaired and what the potential sources, excuse me, might be for the pathogens entering, you know, those streams. I know.
So Ron, is this new? Because I don't remember us ever talking about pathogens before.
It might be new. I doubt it. It was probably picked up in the TMDL is where that original came up from. That, you know, it's listed in the TMDL plan. There is a requirements table that's listed in there, and it tells you from the US EPA 1995 TMDL study what kind of pollution they found in the stream, and they found pathogens, and the Big Elk Creek side doesn't have it in the township, but the White Clay Creek side has it. And there should be a section in your stormwater ordinance that talks about pathogens, and I think they make you require the poop bags in your common area, your public areas.
Okay.
I think that's required in your stormwater ordinance. So that's one of the things they do to try to address part of this. But that's a goal that you need to have a plan, a map, and sewer sheds, and then come up with an inventory and do something all in the next 27 is the first due date, 28, 2028 the next, and then ultimately at 2029 to start actually implementing it. And then the last two are the PRP, which we did. That's in the TMDO where we have, I think it was a little over about 10,300 and something like that, or in the what's the number? 10,384 pounds of load to be reduced of suspended solids. And then we did a TMDO plan where we needed 121,895 pounds to be removed.
So Ron, just have a question here. So I looked at the permit that DEP agreed to, right? I don't see those, maybe I missed, I don't see those numbers anywhere in the permit. Do they not, like, where are these numbers documented? I know these are always the numbers you presented to us, but where did it get caught up in or documented in the actual plan that DEP agreed to?
I can't point you to the specific paragraph and section. They wouldn't cite the specific numbers. What they would cite is the PRP/TMDL plans that were approved that were a requirement of doing getting the permit issued.
So they never documented in the actual permit that these are your numbers?
I don't think no, these are boilerplate permits.
So do you not see this odd? I mean, okay. we worked so hard on that site. I thought that was a big deal, that we agreed to the numbers, right? Because everything's based on us reducing this by 10%.
Well, it is, I mean, you can't get the permit until you have that plan approved, and you can't get that plan approved until you've got a number that they accept, and, so.
But where do they say they accepted it?
I think it's implied by the approved plan, right?
But you would think they document it.
I don't disagree.
For what it's worth, I think ours was on our permit. It was, there's a section.
There is a section on your permit.
Ron, if you find that section, if you find a place where they do document it, if you could just send me an email or send Jeff, and Jeff could send it to me.
I'll go through that. I haven't gone through and looked for that specific. It's
Okay.
one of those things, we've been working toward that goal for so long in so many places and different townships and stuff that we just assumed it's in there, but it's like, I mean, that's sort of the, the passing your written test and driving test, and then now they're giving you the driver's license. If you don't pass both those other tests, you don't get that driver's license. So
I guess what I thought it would be in Appendix D and Appendix F, because that's where those plans are discussed. But I did not see it in either Appendix D or Appendix F. And I'm like, I was disappointed because I was looking for them to say, we want a 10% reduction of this particular number. But if you find it, let me know.
I'll find that and get back to you.
Okay, great, thanks. I just want to, I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of work this is. It's blowing my mind.
It's everything that we've been talking about or focusing on up to this point has a much, much higher number in terms of the magnitude of the cost associated with removing these loads than it does to do each one of these other things. I'd say you're probably looking at, I don't know, $10,000 to $15,000 a year, maybe to administer this program on an annual basis for the number of outfalls that you have.
Wow.
So we're not talking, we're talking hundreds of thousands to do D and F. So it's a lot of work. It seems like a lot of work, and it's a lot of work that you've got to pay attention to a couple of weeks out of every year, but it's not.
Yeah,
You go out and do an inspection of one of these basins. It takes you maybe an hour a basin to do them. So it's not like.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's just, you spend all of this time doing this really expensive, labor intensive, process. And then when you're done, oh, by the way, here's a bunch of other stuff you have to do that has nothing to do really with your initial reduction of your sediment load. It's kind of like this big miasma of just tax money tax money going out to all this stuff. I think that's where we're kind of coming from. I'm preaching to the choir, I realize, but it's just the amount of here. There's just one more thing with these projects. It is overwhelming.
And we only have 3 people on our staff. It's just like
it is, and I say this, I think I've said this every time MS4 comes up. This is our single biggest infrastructure project that the township undertakes. It's the most expensive. It's going to require the most amount of manpower, and no single resident will even see a benefit.
Right.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Forever. It doesn't, there's no.
Forever. It doesn't stop.
Well, not to give you more reason to not be happy with the full program, but
Ron, I started out in a good mood.
I'm sorry. I do this. That's why I'm retiring, guys. I'm tired of being the bearer of the bad news. But 80% to 90% of the load in these rural municipalities, and I was raised on a farm, so I'm a farm boy, is the farmers. That's where the load comes from. not the subdivisions and not your township building. And so, and PennDOT, who we purchased load reduction from in East Nottingham Township, it says right in the introductory paragraph to their PRP, which is what we have a PRP and a TMDL. They just had a PRP, and that one that we bought into says that their study area is just the impervious area within their right of way in the big Elk, or in whatever watershed it is. We do ridge line to stream. That's our study area. So why are we being treated differently than PennDOT in terms of what we're being held accountable for? I don't know. And I've talked till I'm blue in the face to every solicitor that we've got going in all my townships, and nobody's willing to enter into any kind of a challenge. So.
If I may ask,
What I'd like to do from here would be to have us.
Hey, Ron, real
kind of
quick.
a staff
Hey, Ron, real quick. Bruce has got a question for you.
Yep.
I'm curious, in your TMDL of 122,000 pounds, what do you have line of sight to meet? Projects to meet that? You have it all? I'm just curious, where you guys?
Well, I think we have our first pass identified, which is some stream restoration projects. And what is it? What was the total load on that? For
I was hoping I was going to take it all.
Was that going to take
it's
that
a
all?
little over. It's about 1,100 linear feet. We get about 115 pounds per foot, so it should take all of this.
Yeah. So it's a stream restoration project in Franklin Preserve.
Thanks.
So I'd like to meet with a smaller, I've talked to Jeff about this. We'd like to follow up in terms of the annual report and the stormwater management program, and work with a smaller group. Whoever, I guess, Donna, we've worked with you in the past on some of this stuff, and then come back with our final version of this, maybe this at your work meeting in April.
So I can do, I can, I mean, I'm happy to do the annual report. We need you for the creative
Okay.
training
Okay,
stuff, but
all right.
yeah, it would be good, Ron. I guess we can talk about this in our meeting, because if I was at work, if I was doing my job, I would be probably more crossing the T's and dotting the I's. I have a feeling we don't need to be that detailed here. I think I just have to, you can beat me up, beat me back if I'm getting too detailed.
I mean, I think where we really needed to be detailed was the pre-work, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the projects and being able to present them with a good package. Now, I think it's more about doing our best to hit all these individual
Right.
goals.
I think it's just a matter of having a
Yeah.
plan. I mean, the annual report is not going to be, if we have a plan, the annual report becomes easy, Ron, right? Because then you just kind of,
Yeah.
but so I think it's, the big thing is, I'm not going to speak for you, I'll see if you agree with me, but getting the annual report in for last year, get that done. And you're almost there, right? It's like what I was reading in the book is 80% there, or 90% there. Check some boxes and we'll have it to go in. But it's getting the plan ready so that next year's is not going to be so difficult, because that we have at least something to pull from to put something in a report. And I'm not looking for perfect. I'm just looking for good enough to get it in
Okay.
and say we checked the box.
Right. So what else do you got, Ron?
And then our next favorite topic, the roadways.
Yeah,
Or
that's
actually,
right.
Which are most of our they're there, most of the MS4s or the roads.
Mm-hmm.
We had a list sort of left over from last year. We went out and started there, and we went out and took, about a week ago, went out and looked at, I guess Jeff, Betsy and I went out and identified work, and there's detailed spreadsheets behind this one that gives you a breakdown of the lengths and stuff that we're doing on each one of these. But almost $600,000 worth of road work that, in my opinion, should be done this year we can afford it. If we can't afford it, then you start whittling off what can wait a little bit. Also, some of the jobs are small, patch here, patch there, pick up and go to the next road, patch here, patch there. Those are very expensive on basically a square yard rate basis or whatever, because it's not like put the paver down and roll for a half a mile. So it's a lot more labor intensive. They got to move the equipment. That's not cheap to put all that stuff on a couple of trailers and move it and all that kind of stuff. So, my understanding is Melissa, in working through the numbers, is doing the best she can. And I think it sounded like the last I heard was that she might be somewhere between option B and option A in terms of money that she can find to put it toward this, liquid fuels, capital improvement projects for the roads or whatever, and other general funds money, maybe. I'm not sure where else.
Hey, Ron, could you do me a favor and just kind of zoom in on that a little bit? So
Yeah,
it's a
sorry.
little difficult to read. Yeah, no worries.
It looks real big in front of me here on the big
Oh,
screen.
that's great. So when you look at these options, we got A, B, C, and D. How did you parse out those roads between the four options?
Well, Hillcrest is probably the worst road that we have in terms of the condition that it's in. And it's been on the list for the last 3 or 4 years. So that's kind of number one on each one of the options. Auburn Road, we did quite a bit of Auburn last year with some what we called winter patching. And then we had previously put down just the binder course on a section of Auburn Road from Churchill to London Grove Township line. So those two are at a point where if we don't put a sealing coat, wearing coat on top of those, we may lose some of the work that we've done in the past. So they get up there pretty high. So they carry over from A to B. Kimbalot's got some areas that we've looked at for a number of years with some cracking, some alligatoring, that, those are pretty high on the list to fix, but that's one that I really wouldn't want to go in there and try to do them piecemeal. And the only reason there is two is that at each end of Kimbalot, there's a wide section. It's about 30 feet wide. And then the rest of it's, so I costed it a little as a separate section. So that's why there's two and not just one big project. Most of the rest of them are the small fixing what we've called winter patching in the past. I mean, it's areas that are cracking alongside the edge of the road, alligatoring in the middle of the road. You get a lot of depression and alligatoring in each travel lane where the tires roll down, in the travel lane. So it's milling it up and putting a base repair in and then putting a wearing surface over top of that. But again, they're not very cost effective to do. So I tried to make B be as cost effective as we could. I did put in the patching work along Guernsey because that's along that guide rail. That's been a historic problem, maintaining the stability of the edge of the road there alongside that guide rail. So I thought that was important to try to keep in. So that got us to B. And then we went to C. I said, okay, let's just take all of Kimbalot in and we'll hold off one more year on that one. We'll pick up Hillcrest. Auburn, that's the part that's just putting the overlay over our binder, so we don't lose the binder that we put in a few years ago. And then we try to get by one more year for the part that was the Churchill to the where we stopped paving a couple years ago. And then the D is just kind of doing the minimum. I mean, I took Walker out and put Walker back in because I was looking for something that would get me. My original budget was a little over 2 something when I first started this, so I kind of threw Walker in with. The
So
two that
D,
I felt needed to be done all the way across was Auburn 2 and Hillcrest.
yeah, I mean, we've been talking about Hillcrest Drive for 5 years now, and probably before that, because it was marginal 5 years ago, and it's just gotten worse. So I guess the way I would look at this list is D is the must do's, right? D is the three projects that we must do this year, and then um, B and C, A, B, and C are kind of just different looks at maybe the I don't know how to say less important or the less critical. I should say less than critical roads is how I would look at it. One question is Den Road. It's not a very expensive piece of this project, but I'm thinking back to the 896 road improvement project, and they're going to probably beat up that road pretty good. So do we just wait and say, can Den Road survive? Because I don't want to do a bunch of work and then all of a sudden
But you're
PennDOT
not,
comes
but
in.
you're not, so look at the numbers. So Denver is a big patch. So it's like $10,000. You're not spending a whole lot. I mean, I think we need to do that just to get it through the
Yeah, I'm just,
96 project.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
The edge of the road there has been breaking up right
Yeah,
around
okay.
108.
Yeah, I just don't want to necessarily do a bunch of work this year and then next year it's just torn up, you know?
Yeah.
But it's not that, it's a small piece.
I think
It's a
you
very
look at it is think what you need to do to get through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
because that's like.
I was thinking the same thing, Dave, for Den Road, like for all the roads that are going to be affected by 896. Is it better that we do them all now so that they can support throughout that project, or is it better to wait? I don't know.
Yeah, but if you wait too long, I really want to hear what exactly we're doing, but Den Road's one where it's just a big patch, so I think you need to do that.
Mm.
But if you're spending like $10,000 or $16,000, you're just patching. You're not really doing a big job like you are with Auburn, I guess like Hillcrest. Like that's an example of a road where you're really doing a number. So I think you're just doing what you can to get through. Even Guernsey, we're talking about $9,600. We're just patching, I don't know what's going on with Walker. Is Walker, because that's kind of in the middle. I don't know what's the plan for Walker? Is that a big patch or is that?
We did a lot of patching and left it in binder last year. We did some there at the intersection, but now we're finding there's quite a bit on farther out on Walker, to the point that it's gotten quite a bit. There's quite a bit there to patch because of the length of that.
I mean, what I would suggest, I have an option E. And I'm not coming up with this on my own. This is from talking to Jeff, that we take. So just remember in your heads, we have $243,000 as liquid fuels. So that's money that we can spend on this. And I was looking at Auburn at 53, Hillcrest, we all talked about, we need that at 136. Pick up Kimbalot 1 and 2, pick up Parson, and then Red Fox is one that Jeff called out that we should do. Walker at 35, Den at 10, and Guernsey at 10. And that comes up to a total of $422,000 minus the 243, which would be your liquid fuels, leaves us with needing to find $179,000 from somewhere. And I think, Melissa, I don't want to misquote you, but we could probably get about $100,000 from snow removal. Is that what you're thinking? And then we'd have to come up with another 80,000 from capital if we have to pull from there. But I'm thinking that might be a way forward versus going with A or A without Auburn number 1. I think it's just too much money we got to find. I'll just put that out. And Jeff, it was based on your conversation with me, the roads that you
Can you
felt
put
that you needed to get
I
done.
think we lost our slide. Can you put that back up so we can see it?
Let's see it here.
Oh, there we go. We got it.
Here we go.
Jeff's got it. Jeff's got it.
Yeah, so as I said, I was looking at E. E would be Auburn Road 2. It would be Hillcrest, which we want to pick that one up no matter what.
So our road 1 is on pause. So it's
Right.
Auburn 2,
Hess, we wait on Hess Mill.
wait on Hess. Then Hillcrest is definite, right?
Right, gotta
That's
have that one.
non-negotiable.
Wait on Liberty. And then wait on Peacedale and wait on Churchill.
Okay.
And that's a total of 422,841 minus the liquid fuels gives us 179,583.
Okay.
So Melissa, and the reason I wanted to pull this up, because Melissa, part of your, if I heard you right, the one way that you thought we might be able to afford some of these, like maybe the A program is that we would postpone Thomas Estates, which I think we've allotted, I don't know, 130,000 for that, or a lot of money for that. And I don't want to, we're going to have to do Thomas Estates eventually. So it's not like the money's not going to be spent. So I think if we could try to do the 179, get 100,000 from snow removal and 79 from capital, I think that might be something we could handle. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Melissa? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
How much is left in our snow removal budget?
Uh, to date, we
Numbers.
have, hold on. We have about 100,000 left.
Okay.
So no more snow allowed.
No more snow.
Right. No more snow.
No more snow.
Okay. So that seems like that seems like a reasonable plan. It kind of gets the critical pieces done, gets Kimbalot done, and then we get some of our patching completed.
Gets Hillcrest done.
And it gets Hillcrest. Well, Hillcrest that has to be done. We've been waiting on that too long. So
And then it's still, yeah.
okay, good.
You,
Could we, if we just had, at least I'm close enough to your township, you probably had the same temperatures I had, but I had down around 14 over the weekend, both mornings.
Yeah.
So, and now it's supposed to get, what, 60 tomorrow?
Well,
Yeah.
anything can blow up. We know.
Well, that's what I'm thinking is, can we work on what Donna just offered up and kind of make that be our plan? But maybe go look at a couple of these roads prior to.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Like, yeah, I mean, I think, Ron, what we'll do is, I think we agree in principle on that plan, and that'll be what you guys will work from, right? And if a road blows up, we'll make that adjustment. I mean, it's like, we can't predict what road blowing up. So I think that's probably the way to do it. And if and when that happens, just come back to us and say, hey, we're swapping out Kimball Lot 1 for, whatever, because the earth caved in.
And I know this is a preliminary look, but maybe if I don't know, maybe make a suggestion that we flip this around and make column D be the first column and have the bare minimum, and then every column after that is an escalation of what you think should be done. But then we can also, like Donna just did, is pull little things in to make it fit into whatever we can budget. But that doesn't have to be done this year. I'm just saying for the future.
Yeah.
Almost like an escalating scale to show like what we can possibly do versus everything.
Right.
and it's, we never have enough money. I mean, just after talking about MS4, the one thing we can count on is that 243,000 from liquid fuels. And it would be wonderful if we could get our road program down just to be 243, because we truly don't. I don't know if you guys can remember the budget. We didn't put any money in capital funds for the roads. It's only because we're carrying it over from 2024 that we actually have we have money in capital funds. We've been putting, at least last year, we put a lot of our money into MS4, and it's not even enough. So,
Yeah. So
it's just so.
there's a reason why we can't do column A. And the reason we can't do column A is we're paying for MS4.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have said, let's do column A. Actually, usually the conversation is there anything else?
Yeah.
Right. But now it's column D, column C, because of MS4. So what we're spending alone on MS4 is about column B every year. So just guys, when I say this is the biggest infrastructure project, column B, $425,000 a year, is about what this township is paying for MS4. That's why we can only spend about 100 grand, 150 grand a year on our roads.
I would be sure interested to know, because PSAT said they were going to fight unfunded mandates.
Good
And I
luck.
sure would like to know where that stands with them,
Well,
because I don't think we're the only ones in this.
there's
Obviously, we're not the only ones in this.
well,
But-
every township of our size is going to struggle with this, right? And they bring up a good point where it seems like PennDOT farms that cause a lot of these issues are untouchable, and we get to clean up those messes. And it's a way to clean up those messes without doing something that might be politically unattractive. That is what is happening. Sorry. Sorry, it gets me riled up every time. Particularly when we start talking about the roads,
Yes.
Maybe Doge can do something with MS4.
Yeah, there you go.
Have them blow up the whole, what
Exactly.
is it? Yeah.
If I may offer two things, I don't know if they'll be additive, but I'll just state them. We're going to be talking about our road projects on Monday or our meeting. I don't think in the past we shared what our plans are, but we'll share it with Jeff so you guys can see, piggybacking if at anything. But I don't think in the past we've talked about it, but we'll officially share that. The second thing is, I just want to build a little bit. We've had discussions around the 896, right, and redo the roads or not. And I wouldn't say this is the official position, but we've talked about basically making sure those passages are safe, but not redoing the roads, and making absolutely sure that we document what those cut throughs are. And then we go back to, and to PennDOT and say, look, this changed. So again, I don't know if that's additive, but that's what we want to try to do is document.
Have you had, I think you've joined us here for those PennDOT educate. Yeah. So we're doing the videos before and after and stuff. So I'm assuming they're going to do that with you as well. Yeah, is that what you're planning on doing? Is these videos of the roads? And okay.
We're going to do them though.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure if we're doing them or not. I assumed we were doing. Okay, so
No.
PennDOT's going to do it.
And well, at least for us, I assumed all the other townships, they're hiring a contractor to do that. And then they'll be giving us videos of the before and then the after.
Maybe we should do some too, just to compare our notes. Use our robotics tool. So
Yeah, we're going to have a backup.
So, Ron, can we just talk a little bit about the stormwater? So because we are spending money on southeastern, if I get my words right, Southview Estates and Thomas Estates, right? So I think it was 40K for Southview Estates this year, right? So we're going to try to get that done, Southview Estates, and then Thompson Estates. I think you want to do that testing to see if we can get the numbers down.
Right. Ron had a great idea about doing further testing for Thompson Estates because in the long run, it could save us money. It will postpone the project a year, but I think it's very worthwhile doing. And the bid package for Southview Estates, Ron had given us a draft of that. Stacy and I worked on that today. And then we're going to try putting that out so we could have a possible award in April for that.
Key is that we are going to have for this year, for
Yes.
2020, we're going to be doing Southview Estates.
Yes, ma'am.
But Thomas Estates, we will not do. And so that's money we're going to have to make sure we have in the budget for next year because we still want to get it done.
Right, but we'll do the testing
Right.
this year, and I think Ron felt that would be somewhere around $6,000. Ron
I-
can correct me on that.
I reached out to Brandywine Septic and they're getting me a cost for doing the testing to camera it. And video it and then do some test pits within the bid itself to do, if the televising ends up indicating there's a likely problem area, we're gonna dig it up and see what the problem area is, what's causing it, and see if we could do a patch rather than a replacement.
Keep my fingers crossed. That would be some money we could save. That would be good.
Thank you, Ron, for carrying us through this meeting today. I appreciate it.
I know you always love to see me coming in talking about
Oh,
spending.
I love to see you, Ron. It's just the topics that kind of get.
All right,
riled up.
I'm gonna get out of here then.
All right, man. Take
All
it
right, we'll see you
easy.
guys.
Have
Thank
fun.
you.
All right, so let's close off. I'd like to again open the floor to public comment. This comment can include anything attendees may want to share. Commenters must state their name and whether they are a township resident or a taxpayer of the township. Do we have any public comment?
This is John Auerbach. I've got a question on the ASA. I don't know whether you can give me an answer right now, but I do have a neighboring farmer who might be interested in the ASA. And the question is, does the land have to be preserved for him to enter the ASA or not?
No, it does not.
Okay.
Just agricultural, right? Just has to be an agricultural property.
It's a good sized farm, and he saw the signs for hockey and wanted to know what it was all about. And I started talking about the ASA, and I thought you may want to consider getting into it. Okay, so he's not preserved, and he probably would never be, but he might be interested. All right, well, you gave me an answer. You gave me the right answer, so thank you.
All right.
Let's see. The road issues, and this may not be what you want to hear, but when I first got on the board, the roads were really in awful, awful shape. So the objective was, if you think about the roads as a whole and their condition, the idea was to apply a repair effort every year that fixed the roads faster than they're degrading. So at that point, over a period of years, then the overall condition of the roads would improve. And you start to see that every year, whether you're making headway. And I thought by 2021, we had gotten to a fairly decent condition. But just looking at what has happened lately, it may be that you're just not fixing the roads fast enough, and they're degrading faster than you're fixing them. And that's what you're seeing right now. So probably not what we want to hear, but
Yeah.
you really probably need to put more money into it, but I know you don't have it. But that's my observation. You just may not be doing it quick enough in an overall sense.
Yeah, the what we've noticed this year is a lot of the patchwork and upgrades. It's not $100,000 resurfacing projects. So if you look at the list, it's a lot of surface cracking.
Yeah.
You know, so there wasn't. If we use a combination of robotics and just good old eyeballs driving around. And I think I would disagree with you in that I think the roads are in good shape. They're much better shape than they were. But we're just facing the maintenance of those roads that we fixed, right? Surface cracking, those sorts of things. We used to see 3, 4, 5 different $100,000 road projects, and now we see one, and then a bunch of, probably things we wouldn't even have considered in the past simply because of those major roads that had, serious issues. So I agree with you, but I do agree we need to be able to spend more money on the projects. We just don't have it.
I think you'll see that if you look at next year's program and see what shows up next year, and that'll tell you whether you're making headway or not. One thing that we did do is we did a lot of base repairs. So all that stuff is still good, because if you don't let the surface go bad, then the base repairs are still there. And we also spent a lot of money replacing all the pipes under the roads. I think we replaced every one of the metal pipes with plastic now. So that's kind of behind you. So I think you got to look at what you're working on right now. And I don't envy it, quite frankly. I was involved there for quite a while.
And I think Dave made a really good point. There's like just the one Hillcrest is the biggie, right? And then, and the rest we're just finishing off Auburn and some of the others just the patching. So I think, yeah,
I don't
we're in a-
disagree with that observation. I think it's accurate. I'm just concerned about how much the overall effort is. And you'll see that next year. When you look at next year's program, if it starts to reduce, then you'll know you're going in the right direction. So one other point, I just listened to that whole MS4 thing. And the thing that perked my interest was the sampling. The township got involved in, we were considering putting in a stream monitoring system way back in 2014 or 15, and that required sampling. And I remember the sampling required a qualified person to take the sample. And then to preserve the sample, you had to refrigerate it until you got it to the point where it could be analyzed. You know, if they're looking for organics or some really fine issues, you may need gas chromatograph analysis and some fairly sophisticated analysis. So I would look at that sampling and find out what you really have to do before you do any of it. Find out what the real requirements are.
John, whatever it is, I think we're going to do the bare minimum.
Okay. One thing I'll just say about the regulations. I mean, the state and the county adopted all these stormwater rules, but the actual regulations were written by the legal, engineering, and construction community, all those firms. And these regulations have been an economic windfall for all of them. I probably can say that because I'm not an elected official anymore. The only other comment I would say is that didn't Arrow do a study of inspections way back, not too many years back? They had lots of pictures with circles and arrows on them and actually sent letters to residents to fix things. Does that count at all to what you're doing?
I think you have to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. You have to have your inventory, and then you have to make sure that continue to be inspected. So that's the thing with this, John. I think we bring it up. It never ends. So it's just this continuous.
And I think that's, the part when we talk about MS4 education, and that's kind of why I keep making these same statements over and over again, is because the people should understand that this isn't a project. And then once the project's done, we're done. No, this is every year, and every year it's going to get a little bit more expensive, and every year there's going to be a new rule. And so when we talk about repairing roads and snow plowing and all the things that we have to do to maintain safety, we're going to start eating into that money because of this unfunded mandate that's being driven by engineering firms. That's what it is. And maybe that doesn't count towards MS4 education, but that's a real big part of what's happening right now.
I don't think that does.
Well,
It should, but it doesn't.
We do what we need to do.
we do what we need to do.
And we
I
do
mean,
the
it's
best we can with them.
unbelievable.
Figure it out.
Yep.
The last comment I wrote down here is related to actually finding the source of some of the illegal discharges. My neighbor is a roadmaster up in Kennett Square, and the way they manage illegal discharges, when they can't figure out where it's coming from, they just plug the pipe and wait for the phone call.
There you go.
All right, that's all I had. And you're doing a really good job here, but it's a tough spot right now with MS4 and the road program.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, John, back to your previous comment. I think Arrow did give us a full listing of all the MS4 or all the projects that are in the township. So I think we have inventory. I don't remember seeing pictures though.
No, I remember seeing a report. It had pictures of all these outfalls and what the homeowners had to do to clean them up. So it'd be worth documentation, see whether it's any value.
I do remember.
We
too.
definitely
They're there, Jim. We'll have to. Maybe Jeff can get them out for us, but they did a very thorough inventory.
Okay.
All right, no more.
All right. Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting at 8:30 PM. May I have a second?
Second it.
All right, thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay.